Hello fellow YouTubers, this is going to be a video review of the GameCube controller. So as you see here, this GameCube controller is wired up. So it's not a Wavebird controller. So over here I'm just going to unwrap it. Unwrap, okay. So it's unwrapped now. So, this controller isn't actually a real GameCube controller. It's a Gamestop Turbo GameCube controller, but overall it works mostly like a real one. I would say it doesn't look as good, but it's still a pretty awesome controller nonetheless. So, first I'll go over the most important parts. So, here's analog. It's very nice. Whenever you move it to a direction, it clicks, makes you feel like you're actually moving it. It has nice traction, and your thumb will most probably stay there most of the time. So, yeah, it's a great analog stick. It's totally better than the classic controller one and the nunchuck one. This is actually real good quality. So, I like it a lot. Clicks nice. I like the classic controller, and it's cool. So, here's the D-pad. This is not really used for many games. Well, not for many Wii games in the least. It can be used for some GameCube games, but don't really play those much. So this D-pad is pretty good. It spins here, but usually this would be useful for either 2D games or just changing the camera. So the analog stick is used a lot more than the D-pad. So, going over second analog stick. This analog stick is basically for camera. It's a good analog stick. Doesn't have as good traction as this one, but it's good, and it's not going to be used for much except the camera, unless you have some kind of second analog thing you need to use. But overall, it's great. So now we'll go over the buttons. So here's the start button. The start select normal. It's fine. Makes a noise if you press it. Great stuff. So, here are the real buttons that are the most used. So, the B button, that is used just for like in Tatsunoko versus Capcom. You use it for tagging out. You can use it for special moves. It can be used for dashing in Budokai Tenkaichi 2. It's just a good button to have around. It's like for a 4-button format, you'll probably need it. A button, probably the most used button in this 4-button set. It's used for like attacking or jumping or stuff. It's the most useful for most probably. Then here's X and Y. These are like additional buttons that can be used in games if you need it. For Tatsunoko versus Capcom, if you want to do a special move, it's really useful because you have to go like this, and then you have to press 2 buttons. It's a lot easier pressing these 2 buttons than doing this, because it just feels a lot better. So these are useful buttons, none the least, and basically you don't need to move your thumb a lot. Really nice. This button over here kind of gives you some strain if you want to go over here, but it's pretty good. My favorite button in this is most probably this one, because it's the easiest to reach. This one, it's a little hard sometimes. B is pretty good, but I like this X button a lot. So, I've gone over all the face buttons now to the back. So, here. These are two buttons you find on most controllers, like the PS2 controller, which I reviewed some time ago. So, these buttons are very nice. They have an indent in them, so your finger can go inside it pretty easily. The indent isn't as good as a previous GameCube controller, but it's good none the least. These buttons are used like side buttons for things like charging in BT2 or 3. It's used for various things, and I would say they're very useful for extra things in games. Okay, now these buttons. These I consider the most useless buttons in this GameCube controller. So, this button over here is a turbo button. This button basically makes you, so if you press it, then you like press A or A, B, X, Y. You do in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. If you press A, you'll be like punching 1,000 times. It's like a weird button. I don't suggest using it. I don't think it's useful in many ways. This button over here, the other one on this side, I haven't found much use for it. It's probably like a really optional button. It's still useful to have if you want to add an extra button into the fray, but overall, not that useful. So, in this review, basically this controller is positively nice. I say it's awesome controller, not as good as the PS2 controller, because that controller is awesome. The button format is good. I would say I love the analog, the buttons are nice. Kind of colorful, which is weird at times, but it's nice. I would rather stick with the GameCube controller, but at GameStop you won't find the old ones, so you can just find this. This looks kind of ugly compared to the other ones, so if you want something that looks nice, get the older ones, but they're harder to find these days. Also, there's the option of the Wavebird, which is a nice controller. It's a wireless controller. It's kind of expensive, but if you can find one, they're very rare and they're very good to buy. So, now I'll show you a few games that the GameCube controller can play on for the Wii. So, Dragon Ball Z BT2. It's a great game. Great fighting game. One of the best on Wii. There are not many fighting games on Wii in general, but it's a good game to play, and it's really good with the GameCube controller or the Classic. So, here's Super Smash Bros. Brawl. One of the best games on Wii, and basically the best fighter, I would say. And I think that's many people's opinions too. Here's Mario Kart, an awesome racing game. I love it. Not the best racing game around, but you can play with the GameCube controller, even though I suggest using the Wii Wheel or maybe the Classic controller. Don't use the nunchuck. That just looks really weird. And finally, Tatsunoko vs. Capcom. This game is truly epic. Second best fighter on Wii, trailing close to Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Awesome game. It gets truly enhanced with the GameCube controller. I would say use the GameCube controller instead of the fighting stick, because the fighting stick is so expensive. If you can get the fighting stick cheap, then buy it, but the GameCube controller is an awesome choice for this game. So, this was the review of the GameCube controller. Truly awesome controller. I think it's one of the best Nintendo controllers ever made. People might disagree, but I would say it's awesome controller. Buy it. So this was a smogchalk production, and I hope you liked it.